Rain falls, washing away the last remnants of youth. Am I just a backup plan to you? Sang Yan's voice cuts through the downpour, raw and desperate. If youth was a spark of hope and love, then for Sang Yan, it was extinguished that night. The girl before him, once his entire world, now speaks words that sever the bond they once shared. I really don't like you coming to see me so frequently. I hope you'll stop coming from now on. Silence. The weight of rejection lingers, pride shatters, memories fracture. Sang Yan grips his resolve. Don't worry, I won't pester you anymore. With that final promise, two figures once intertwined in fate take separate steps forward, away from each other, away from what once was. 6 years later, the morning sun spilling through the blinds. A phone rings. Wen Yi Fan groans, half buried under blankets. Wen Yi Fan, you're not out of bed yet? It's 2 p.m.? Zhang Siqiao's teasing voice jolts her awake. I slept late, Yi Fan murmurs. Watched a horror movie, then my drunk neighbor knocked all night. Again? Just move already. Yi Fan sighs. I'll move when my lease is up. Siqiao changes the subject. Forget that. Come out tonight. I'll set you up with a guy. I'd rather work overtime. That won't cost me a penny. Siqiao laughs. Who said you need money? Just use your eyes. See you at Duoluo Street. At night, two young women, Zhang Siqiao and Wen Yi Fan, navigate the lively crowd, their eyes gleaming with excitement as they spot their destination, overtime, a bar with an unassuming exterior. Wen Yi Fan raises an eyebrow, skeptical. This is the bar you said we'd meet someone at? It looks more like a hair salon. Siqiao dismisses her doubts with a grin. That's not the point. The owner is the legendary handsome star of Duoluo Street. The women settle at a table, scanning the room. Maybe it's the bartender, Yi Fan muses, nodding toward a polite young man in uniform. Siqiao scoffs. Him? No way. And Siqiao's eyes widen. Wait, look over there. A tall, dark-haired man leans against the bar, his sharp gaze scanning the room. The bartender greets him with a teasing smile. The realization hits Wen Yi Fan like a thunderbolt. Sang Yan? Yi Fan, caught in a whirlwind of emotions, barely registers her friend's words. Siqiao reminds her. He was your classmate before you transferred. Didn't he pursue you at some point? Before she can respond, Sang Yan turns and their eyes meet. Their moment was cut short by the crash of a drink spilling onto her clothes by the waiter. She excused herself, heading toward the restroom, trying to compose herself. Inside the restroom, she tried to wipe the stain from her cardigan, but it wouldn't come off. With a sigh, she stepped out, holding it in her hand, only to come to an abrupt halt. Sang Yan was standing there, a cigarette dangling loosely from his fingers, the smoke curling into the air between them. She willed herself to move, to walk past him like he was just another stranger. But her thoughts betrayed her. He probably doesn't recognize me anymore, right? Yet, as she brushed past him, a quiet voice cut through the air. Hey! A soft toss. Before she even realized it, his jacket was in her hands. Her fingers curled around the fabric, her heart pounding. Let's talk, he said, stepping forward, his gaze locked onto hers. I'm the owner of this bar. My last name is Sang. Shock flickered across her face. Was he introducing himself? Did he not remember her after all? Is there anything you need? She asked, keeping her voice even. His response was simple, yet unexpected. I want to apologize for the inconvenience. Your bill tonight will be on the house. Her mind drifts to the past as she silently observes him. He's still the same as before, she muses. No, it's fine, she replies. As he turns to go, she suddenly remembers. His coat. Instinctively, she reaches for it, calling out his name. Sang. But she catches herself too late. Panic flashes across her face. How could strangers know each other's names? She scolds herself internally, realizing her slip. Still, gathering her courage, she rushes after him, calling out more formally this time. Star Sang. He stops in his tracks, his eyes narrowing in silent curiosity. Then, amusement flickers in his expression. He hums, turning towards her fully. Their eyes meet, and Wen Yi Fan freezes. Star Sang? He echoes her words, a small smirk playing at his lips. She looks at him thinking, why does she say that? A beat of silence passed before Sang Yan's lips curled into an amused smile. Ah, so that's what it is, he mused, as if slowly piecing something together. Yi Fan blinked in confusion, flustered under his gaze. Then, without missing a beat, he leaned slightly closer, his voice playful yet firm. Sorry, but we're a decent bar. Please mind your actions. His teasing words struck like a playful jab, causing Yi Fan's face to heat up. Forget it. What's done is done. We wouldn't be meeting again anyway, she reassured herself. She mustered a smile, pushing past her growing unease. That's a bit of a pity, she said, feigning indifference. As she handed him his jacket, Star Sang's smirk deepened. Won't you be quite happy, he teased, to borrow my jacket? I am not so sure, but it seems like I am more famous than the bar, so you can keep it as a souvenir, he said with a confident smile. She looked blankly as he left, not knowing how to counter that. Later, as she sat with her friend, the absurdity of the situation finally hit her. Her friend burst into laughter, shaking her head in disbelief. He really said that? What a brat. Why didn't he just let you take it home and frame it up? She sighed, swirling her drink absent-mindedly. That's exactly what he meant, she admitted with a bitter smile. From across the room, Sang-yeon sat at the bar, a blonde woman by his side. Soon, a waiter hesitantly approaches and apologizes for an earlier mishap, and informs them that their order has been compensated by the owner. He hands them a refund, but Yi Fan declines and insists he keep the money. Before he left, one more thing, she says, handing over a coat. I found this near the restroom. It might belong to a customer. He accepts it with a quiet thank you, while her friend, seated across from her, watches with curiosity. Wen Yi Fan, does he really not recognize you? She asks, eyebrows raised. Wen Yi Fan remains silent, her fingers tracing the condensation on her glass. You don't look that different from high school, her friend murmurs. It's only your hair that's a little shorter. Wen Yi Fan's eyes drifted to him, who sat there looking indifferent to anything. Her friend sighs. Fine, I suppose it's possible he doesn't remember you, she concedes. But come on, someone as eligible as Sang-yeon must have had plenty of girls around him before. Her friend stretches, setting her drink down. Let's go. This place is getting boring. Next time, let's hit a club instead. As she rises from her seat, something slips from her wrist, her bracelet. It falls silently to the ground, unnoticed. They walk past the bar, their conversation drifting into the background. Her friend mentions, almost casually, Shang Lang told me he'll be back next month. Wen Yi Fan nods, her mind elsewhere. Meanwhile, at the bar, a woman nudges Sang-yeon playfully. Let's exchange WeChat contacts, she coaxes. With a nonchalant flicker of his dark eyes, he calmly replies, Nah, I don't have a phone, smoothly shutting down any further attempts at small talk. A bartender approaches the bar counter table. Hey, the customers from K11 left a bracelet. Sang-yeon sat there swirling the drink in his glass, revealed that not only was a bracelet left behind, but a jacket too, one that suspiciously resembles that of Brother Yan. Didn't I say that they don't need to pay? Sang-yeon's voice is cool, but there's an unmistakable edge to it. The bartender stammers. I did tell the customers, but, she insisted, this might not be for the D-drinks. The bartender's voice hesitates, unsure of the gravity of the situation. It was quite noisy, so I might have misheard, but the next words settle in like an unexpected punch. The customer's friend asked her if she had come to the bar just to see you, he says, his tone careful. Sang-yeon's heart stills for a fraction of a second before the bartender finishes. She said no, then, SS Shisade it's TTO. The bartender gulps, as if reluctant to continue. Sang-yeon lifts his gaze. Hook up. The bartender fidgets under the weight of the statement, then attempts a weak clarification. So maybe they gave this for your hookup fee. Next day, as Yi Fan was busy working, her phone buzzed. She opened it and saw a message from her friend telling her to help her to retrieve her bracelet from the bar after work. With a sigh, Yi Fan agreed to it. In the evening, she stepped into the same bar. She walked straight to the counter, her voice soft yet firm. Hi, I was here last night with a friend and dropped a bracelet. Did anyone pick it up? One of the bartenders, slightly flustered, exchanged glances with his colleague. Yes, we did. Please wait a moment. A murmur between the bartenders only deepened her curiosity. Usual. Where's the bracelet from last night? Why isn't it here? Did Brother Yan take it? I am sorry, the owner usually holds lost items, but he is not here. Would you like to leave your number so we can contact you once it's found? The bartender asked. She hesitated before nodding. All right, I'll leave my contact number. She picked up the pen, poised to write. As she was about to give it back, a hand swiftly snatched the notebook away. Her breath hitched as she turned abruptly, her gaze locking onto a familiar face. Sang-yeon. A hint of amusement playing at the corners of his lips. So you're back already? He asked, his tone teasing. A man, dark-clad and exuding an effortless charm, held a small, familiar card between his fingers. He tilted his head slightly, an amused smirk tugging at his lips. You came just to let me have your number? His voice carried a trace of playful arrogance. He casually pulled out a chair, his movements fluid and unhurried. With effortless grace, he poured a drink. Sliding the glass toward her, he leaned in slightly, his gaze sharp yet unreadable. So, he drawled, amusement flickering in his voice. What can I do for you? This guy. Why is he teasing me like I'm trying to hook up with him, she thought. Exasperated yet unable to look away. I'm here for my friend's bracelet, she stated firmly, pushing aside her discomfort. I was told the boss handles lost and found items. He let out a small scoff, swirling his drink lazily. And who told you I had time to deal with misplaced items? Her patience wore thin, I'll leave my number here. Call me when it's found, she said, placing a note on the counter. For the first time, something shifted in his expression. As she turned to leave, a low voice stopped her in her tracks. Wait a minute. She turned, puzzled, watching as he lazily raised his glass. Mingbo, why are you just standing around? A bartender approached. Someone lost something important. Are you not going to look for it? She observed him carefully, an inexplicable feeling settling in her chest. Their first encounter had been frustrating, yet something about him felt oddly familiar. Years ago, at Nanwu High School, she climbed the steps. Class, she murmured to herself, scanning the hallways nervously. She spotted a tall figure at the water fountain, his back turned toward her. With hesitant steps, she approached, clearing her throat. Excuse me. The boy didn't turn right away. Do you know where Class 117 is? She asked hesitantly. He paused for a moment before responding, his voice slow and deliberate. Go straight. Turn right. Then? She asked, blinking in confusion. His gaze flickered with amusement as he finally looked at her properly. Then? He repeated, arching a brow. Feeling flustered, she struggled to find words. He sighed, his voice lower this time. Read the numbers yourself, or do you need this senior to read each one out for you? Her cheeks burned at his teasing words. She wasn't sure if he was mocking her or just having fun at her expense. Later, the bustling hallways led her to her new classroom, Class 1 to 17. She took a deep breath before stepping inside. Sangyan, the teacher called. Miss, my name is Wen Yi Fan, she corrected politely. The teacher blinked in surprise. Oh, I assumed you were Sangyan. The attendance list showed that you and he were the only ones not present, and Sangyan sounded more feminine. Just then, a familiar voice cut through the moment. I'm sorry for being late, miss. Wen Yifan's eyes widened as she turned. There he was, the boy from before, standing at the doorway. So you're Sangyan? The teacher asked, confirming what Wen Yifan had already suspected. Yes, teacher, he replied nonchalantly. The teacher frowned. Why were you both late on the first day of school? Did you two come together? She asked, her curiosity piqued. Sangyan lazily scratched the back of his head. No, he said with a casual shrug. My dad didn't realize I was already in senior high, so he sent me to the junior high campus instead. Silence. Then a collective reaction of disbelief and amusement spread across the classroom. Later, Sangyan's friend jokingly teases him about his name being girly. With an air of confidence, he jokingly flirts, saying that if Sangyan were a girl, he would definitely pursue him. In retaliation, Sangyan crushes Su Haowen's playful arrogance by stating that even if he were a girl, he wouldn't fall for someone like him. He then goes on to explain, with exaggerated dramatics, how his father painstakingly chose his name through days of research and family meetings, ensuring it was the manliest name possible. His prideful declaration, however, is met with skeptical stares from his classmates. The girl beside him covers her mouth, barely containing her laughter. Catching her laughing, they both turned to her. Sangyan leaned closer. I haven't had the chance to ask, he began. New seatmate, what's your name? The question lingers in the air, almost as if time slows. Back in the present, she still remembers that younger version of him, as the bartender approached, found it. It was under the account book, he announced, holding up a delicate golden bracelet. With a grateful smile, she tucked the bracelet safely into her palm. Thank you. His sharp gaze followed her as she turned to leave, yet he remained motionless, his fingers tightening around the drink. He glared at the bartender, who chuckled nervously. The bartender giggled, trying to mask his unease. You got a problem? The man asked, his expression darkening. Nope. The bartender immediately averted his gaze. Later that night, Yifan informs Xiao that she retrieved her bracelet. Xiao excitedly invites her to a fireworks show. But Yifan declines. She has work to cover the live stream of the fireworks for a TV station at some different location. Just as she was about to unwind, a loud bang shattered the silence. She froze. A drunken voice slurred from outside. Hey, pretty lady, do me a favor, my bathroom is broken, so let me take a shower at your place. Her breath hitched. This guy again? I know you're in there. The pounding grew violent. Heart racing, she grabbed her phone. Hello? 110? I need to report. The next morning, she arrives at Nanwu TV station, visibly exhausted. Her coworker notices her exhaustion. With no choice but to find a new home, she explained about her situation. Another colleague presents an unexpected lifeline. Looking for a place? My roommate just moved out. It seems fate is giving her an option. That evening, Dongju Square is alight with festive cheer. Yifan, now in work mode, hands her radio to Fu Zhuang before heading to the restroom. Hold on to this for me. On her way, she received a message from a friend. Opening it, she found a screenshot. Sangyan had sent a broadcast wishing everyone a Happy New Year. But she hadn't received it. His number was still in her contacts. Had he deleted hers? That had to be the reason. Shrugging off the thought, she decided to send her own broadcast message. Just as she hit send, a voice nearby caught her attention. She is in high school now. Does she still need someone to wait for her outside the bathroom? The voice was familiar. She turned instinctively, her eyes landing on him, Sang Yan, his face illuminated by the glow of his phone, arguing with a woman. Why is he here? She wondered. His mother's voice echoed, explaining that she was out on a date with his father and that he should just wait for his sister. So, why did you ask me to come? To babysit? He spoke, his deep voice tinged with mild annoyance. As they were arguing, his phone buzzed, and he stared at his phone screen where unread messages blinked at him. Among them was a simple Happy New Year from Yi Fan. His fingers hesitated over the keyboard, but after some time staring at it blankly, he pressed send, with a short reply. She soon noticed as her phone vibrated. A simple response, ? From Sang Yan, made her confused. Why did he send a question mark? She mumbled to herself, staring at her screen. Had she said something strange? No, it was just a Happy New Year. Her fingers hovered over the screen as she began typing, deleting, retyping. You know who I... Delete. You know, delete. The words refused to come out right. She inhaled deeply, deciding that maybe it didn't need to be perfect. If it's not happy, that's fine too. She sent it before she could overthink. As he glanced up, a small, almost imperceptible smile tugged at his lips. Perhaps, the years of unspoken words, something still remained. Nearby, a young woman, dressed in a white hoodie and a soft yellow scarf, finds herself at a restroom sink, dismayed to find no paper towels. Yi Fan, with a mask, standing nearby, offers her a small pink packet, perhaps tissues. Their eyes meet briefly as the girl accepts the kindness. Outside, the girl finds her brother in the bustling crowd. He notices her distracted expression as she murmurs, I think I saw someone familiar. His sharp gaze follows her movements, but she was already gone. Meanwhile, Yi Fan returned and is busy with event preparations. As she stands there with her colleague, reviewing documents for an upcoming event, he turns to her with a wistful look. Yi Fan, do you think wishes made on fireworks will come true? Without missing a beat, she replies, Nope. He pouts, his expression falling. I just wanted to wish for a girlfriend next year. She raises an eyebrow, unimpressed. That'll definitely be even more useless, she mutters. Soon his eyes brighten, thinking of another wish. But it'll work if I make a small wish to be a little taller, right? Just as tall as that guy over there would be good enough. She follows his gaze, and among the sea of people, standing effortlessly tall with his usual composed expression, is Sang Yan. He's got my ideal body type, her colleague blurted, his words laced with admiration. Why don't you steal his face as well? Yi Fan teased him. You're right, but isn't it too much if I take two things away? He answered seriously to her surprise. Soon the lights from a towering skyscraper flickered as the numbers began to change. The cheers of countdown rang through the streets, anticipation building. Among the sea of people, Yi Fan and his friend maneuvered carefully, but the thick crowd made movement difficult. The surge of bodies was overwhelming. Yi Fan, momentarily distracted, lost her balance as the force of the crowd pressed against her. Her breath hitched, she was falling. But instead of hitting the ground, a firm grip caught her. Warmth enveloped her as a strong hand steadied her, pulling her into a secure embrace. She looked up, wanting to apologize, but her eyes widened in surprise as recognition struck her like a bolt of lightning. It was him, again. The first firework exploded into the sky, golden light illuminating their faces as they stood frozen in the moment. She quickly pulled away, flustered. I'm sorry, she stammered. He let go. It's all right, he said, barely audible over the cheers around them. As she turned to leave, she convinced herself that he wouldn't recognize her, not with the mask on. Happy New Year, he said, while continuing his phone call. His words felt oddly directed at her. She turned and stood frozen, watching him from a distance. Maybe I was overthinking what she thought, continuing on her way. As she left, Sang Yan stopped in his tracks. You're acting weird today. Still, thank you and Happy New Year, the person on the call said. Sang Yan turned toward Yi Fan, a puzzled expression crossing his face. What are you thanking me for? He asked. Didn't you just wish me? The voice on the other end questioned in confusion. With a scoff, Sang Yan replied coolly, Don't flatter yourself. Without another word, he ended the call. A faint smile tugged at his lips. Only he knew who his New Year's wish was truly meant for. Next day, her colleague who suggested a renting place brought her to her apartment. This is a 3-room apartment, she explained, but only 2 are available for rent. There's a locked utility room. She nodded as she stepped inside. What do you think? Her potential roommate Xiao Fan asked with a smile. It's a little expensive, she admitted. But it's good. Xiao Fan chuckled. Take your time. Moving is a big deal. Let's eat first, Yi Fan suggested with a grin. I'm starving. They walked down the illuminated streets. They chatted a bit. Before the conversation could continue, Xiao Fan's phone rang. A sweet, affectionate voice replaced her usual teasing tone. Darling, what's up? She cooed, a dreamy look in her eyes. Her smile turned coy. Really? You're nearby? Why don't you swing by and pick me up? Yi Fan prepared to leave. Then I'll get going. But we were supposed to eat together, Xiao Fan pouted. My boyfriend's bringing some friends. You won't feel like a third wheel, she reassured. Soon, a sleek black vehicle rolled to a stop beside them. The young man in the driver's seat looked up. Wen Yi Fan? Huh? She murmured, equally startled. Su Haowen? Then a frustrated voice of his broke the moment. I can't park here. Just get in already, both of you. As Yi Fan hesitantly turned to the car, her hands tighten on the door handle. Her gaze slowly drifts to the passenger seat, where a man dressed in black, his hair slightly tousled, sits quietly, his head tilted downward, as if asleep. Yi Fan gets into the car, slightly awkward about her position. A teasing voice from the front seat snaps the moment. Sang Yan, wake up! Your first love is sitting right next to you. Sang Yan opens his eyes and shifts. His eyes flicker toward Yi Fan, who still sits there awkwardly as if she hasn't heard anything. Do you guys know each other? Xiao Fan inquired. Yes, we were all classmates. Yi Fan transferred during the second year, Su Haowen explained. And what do you mean by first love? She asked, her curiosity piqued. Oh, did your friend chase after Yi Fan but it didn't work out? She added, pressing further. Yi Fan clenched her fingers slightly, stealing a glance at Sang Yan, but he remained silent. Su Haowen, it's not like that. Yi Fan tried to brush it off. But Su Haowen wasn't one to let go so easily. No, I'm right. Why aren't you saying anything? He challenged Sang Yan, who sat there, still quiet. Seeing neither of them willing to speak on the matter, Su Haowen finally broke the silence. It's already been 7 or 8 years. I only brought it up to break the ice. Sang Yan, there's no way you're still hung up on it, are you? He asked, curiosity evident in his tone. Everyone's eyes shifted to Sang Yan, but he didn't utter a single word. Just ignore him, Yi Fan, Su Haowen said with a sigh. He's always like this. Thinks he's above everyone. He probably thinks you were dumb for not falling for him, he added with a small laugh, attempting to lighten the tension in the air. As they arrived, Yi Fan took an empty seat beside Sang Yan. Feeling a little excluded, she excused herself to the restroom. Inside, Xiao Fan followed and casually asked, Why did you reject Sang Yan? Aren't your standards too high? She joked. But after a moment, she concluded, Well, judging by how indifferent he acted in the car, it doesn't seem like he still feels that way. Not wanting to dwell on the topic, Yi Fan quickly made an excuse about work to leave as soon as possible. Stay a little longer, Xiao Fan urged, but Yi Fan declined, insisting she had work. As she stepped outside, she found Sang Yan standing there. Gathering her courage, she attempted to initiate a light conversation. Long time no see, she said, but he leaned in slightly, a smirk playing on his lips. It's only been a few days since New Year's Eve. Does a day feel like a year to you when you don't see me? He teased. Yi Fan stared at him. There were 2 things she was certain of: she never knew how to deal with him. And he had definitely recognized her that night but pretended otherwise. Now the look on his face told her she couldn't ignore it either. I thought you didn't recognize me because I was wearing a mask, she said, hoping to brush past the subject. No, I didn't, he admitted. My sister did. He paused before adding, She said you wouldn't stop staring at me. His voice carried a quiet confidence. She looked at him again. He was always like this. That's true, she said with a small smile. Because everyone around you was talking about how your pants were unzipped. His smirk faded as silence fell between them. Anyway, I have some work. Let's catch up another time, she said, turning to leave. Before she could walk away, he called out to her. Do you remember where Su Haowen's car is parked? She nodded. Lead the way, he said. As they reached the parking lot, Sang Yan wished her goodbye and walked toward his car. Meanwhile, Yi Fan checked the app, only to find that no cars were available. With no other option, she turned to him. This place seems a bit remote. Can you give me a ride? She asked. Where do you live? He inquired. After she described her address, he responded casually, Oh, that's not on my way. I'm not asking you to drop me home just near the subway, she said with a hopeful smile. He stared at her for a moment before sliding into his car. Get in, he said. As they sat in the car, silence filled the space. Neither spoke, making the atmosphere heavy. Yi Fan glanced around before stealing a look at him. His face still brought her back to the past. She remembered them sitting in class, their exam results in hand. Suhowan had teased them about ranking last, just as they had arrived late on their first day of school. Sang Yan, full of confidence, claimed he had a perfect score in math and science. He leaned toward Yi Fan to see her score, but she quickly scolded him, refusing to show her report. "Focus on your own mistakes and learn from them," she had told him. But he smirked. "At least I don't have that many red crosses on my paper," he teased. Then he looked down at his results and after a moment turned to her. "Why don't we apply to the same university?" he asked seriously. "What do you think?" She had stared at him then, just as she was now. "Hey, you can drop me here," she suddenly said, realizing they had just passed a subway station. "Do I look like your chauffeur?" he replied coldly. "Then where are we going?" she asked, puzzled. "To your house," he answered flatly. They soon arrived at her place. As she got out of the car, she turned to him. "Thank you. I'll treat you to a meal whenever you're free." "Oh? You're already planning the next time you'll see me?" he said playfully. She froze. Had he really gotten so popular that he thought that way about everything? Or was he misunderstanding her because of what she had said at the bar that day? Feeling the need to clarify, she quickly said, "I didn't mean what I said at the bar." "Which part?" he asked, a sly smile playing on his lips. "The part where you said it's a pity." Realizing it was pointless to argue with him, she turned away. "Okay, bye now," she said, walking off. He watched her retreating figure, something unreadable flashing in his eyes. As Yi Fan climbed the steps toward her house, she noticed a group of men standing there, seemingly waiting for her. One of them stepped forward. "Let's see if you still have that attitude after we show you what real harassment is like," he sneered. Realizing their intent, fear gripped her. Without hesitation, she turned and ran back down the steps. Her heart pounded as their voices echoed behind her. As she stepped outside the building, her eyes darted toward the black car still parked nearby. Sang Yan was standing beside it, talking on the phone. He noticed her immediately, his gaze shifting toward her, but she quickly looked away, pretending not to see him. "Yi Fan?" he called out, sensing something was wrong. She didn't respond and walked past him as if she didn't know him. But before she could get any further, he swiftly made his way toward her, grabbed her arm, pulled open the car door, and pushed her inside. "Stay inside. Don't come out," he ordered, slamming the door shut and locking it. The group of men approached. "Young man, is that your girlfriend?" one of them asked. "Mind your own business," Sang Yan replied, irritation flickering across his face. "We're not here to cause trouble," the man said, puffing on his cigarette. "But your little girlfriend needs to come out and apologize." He sneered as he continued rambling about her looks. But before he could say another word, Sang Yan's foot connected with his stomach, sending him staggering backward. His friends rushed forward in concern. Sang Yan stood his ground. "Are you going to leave or not?" he asked, making it clear that he wouldn't accept no for an answer. The men, however, weren't planning to back down. Together, they lunged at him, but he fought them off single-handedly. Inside the car, Yi Fan quickly dialed the police. As the fight continued, sirens blared in the distance. The police had arrived. Seeing them, Yi Fan immediately stepped out of the car. Without thinking, she moved to stand in front of Sang Yan, shielding him. "I was the one who called," she told the officers. "This is my friend, and these men attacked us." Sang Yan looked down at her, surprised. In that moment, as she stood protectively in front of him, later they sat in a nearby park. Yi Fan handed him a bag of medicine. "Put some medicine on first. Are you hurt anywhere else?" she asked worriedly as she sat beside him. Sang Yan remained silent, not uttering a word. "Should we go to the hospital? It won't take long," she asked again, concern evident in her voice. "Yi Fan," he called out suddenly, his voice steady. "Didn't you see me earlier? I called out to you. Didn't you hear me? Why did you run instead of asking me for help?" His eyes locked onto hers. She looked away. I didn't want to drag you into it. There were 3 of them. I thought it would be too much for you to handle alone," she explained. He sighed, watching her carefully. So that was her reason for running away. Tearing open the packet of medicine, he began applying it to his face. "Let me help you," Yi Fan offered, startling him. She took the medicine from his hand and gently dabbed it onto his wounds. "Don't use this as an opportunity to take advantage of me now," he teased, his tone light but his gaze unwavering. "Yeah, sure, I'll watch myself," she replied, playing along, knowing it was impossible to stop him from teasing her. He fell silent. She was refusing to give him another chance to poke fun at her. But as he watched her, his heart pounded louder and louder. Yi Fan, sensing his gaze, glanced up, and in that moment, both their hearts raced in sync, a mix of nervousness and excitement filling the air. Lost in the moment, she accidentally pressed a little too hard on his chin, making him wince. "Can't you be more gentle?" he complained, pouting. "My bad, sorry. I'll be more careful," she said quickly, now more focused, not wanting to hurt him further. He looked down, a smirk tugging at his lips. You're just applying medicine. Do you really need to get this close? He asked, his tone serious, catching her off guard. She immediately pulled away. Sorry, it's just a little dark, she excused herself, hurriedly putting the medicine back into the bag. Afterward, he asked for details about the incident, and she explained everything that led up to it. So why are you still living there? He asked, puzzled. She informed him that she had already found a new place, but hadn't had time to move out yet. He stood up. Let's go. Pack your stuff. Or are you planning to spend another night in that horrible place? His voice was cold, leaving no room for argument. Gratitude filled her at the thought that he was staying with her while she packed. Thank you, she murmured sincerely. They soon arrived at her new place, bringing some of her belongings. I'm sorry for the inconvenience earlier, she apologized. I promise I'll treat you to a meal. Forget it, he replied indifferently. Even if it was someone else, I would have done the same. Still, you fought for me and even got a scar on your beautiful face. I owe you. So please, let me know if you ever need help in the future, she said, her sincerity clear. Okay, sure. Bye now, he said, turning to leave. As he sat in his car, his phone rang. Where's the car? Su Haowen's voice came through. Did you just realize that? Sang Yan sighed. Su Haowen rambled on about being stuck with his girlfriend. If you're done, I'm hanging up now, Sang Yan said, reaching for a cigarette. Why are you so heartless? Aren't you going to comfort me? Su Haowen complained. Sang Yan searched for his lighter when his gaze landed on something. He picked it up. It was Yi Fan's keys. Then, don't get into a relationship, Sang Yan replied absent-mindedly, staring at the keys. No, I still like the feeling of being with someone, Su Haowen countered. Then you're just asking for trouble, Sang Yan muttered, his eyes drifting toward the direction Yi Fan had gone. You'll understand once you get into one yourself, Su Haowen added, oblivious to the fact that Sang Yan was already feeling it, even without being in a relationship. A few days later, as Xiao Fan greeted Yi Fan in the morning, she asked if Yi Fan had been awake in the middle of the night. Yi Fan shook her head, denying it, but Xiao Fan wondered aloud if she had just been dreaming. She was sure she had heard some noise during the night. Yi Fan paused, a thought creeping into her mind. Could it be that I was sleepwalking again? It hadn't happened in a while, but it was possible. Later, Xiao Fan informed her that she had been offered a new job in a far-off location and would be moving out soon. However, she reassured Yi Fan that she would find a new roommate before leaving. With no other choice, Yi Fan agreed to her suggestion. As Yi Fan busied herself in the kitchen, her phone vibrated. She picked it up and saw a message from Sang Yan. Attached was a picture of her old house key with a message that read, "Don't use the same trick twice." She sighed, recognizing his confident attitude even through text. She quickly replied, "Sorry for causing trouble again. Let me know when it's convenient for you, and I'll come to get it." Sang Yan read her message and smirked before sending a voice message. How about tonight? She had no issue with that, so she asked where she should meet him, his bar or his house. Reading her response, his smirk deepened. All he focused on was the phrase, "at his house." "Did you just say, my house?" he asked in a teasing voice message. Yi Fan frowned at his tone. Why does he sound like I have some ulterior motive? Before she could dwell on it, a second voice message arrived. "Come to the bar at 8 sharp." She agreed, and Sang Yan looked at the keys in his hand with a faint smile. As Yi Fan was replying, Xiao Fan approached her. "Are you talking to Sang Yan? And you also left with him last time. Are you trying to get close to him after rejecting him?" she asked bluntly. Seeing Yi Fan's hesitation, she added, "You should be careful. He might be making fun of you behind your back with his friends. After all, he's a playboy." Yi Fan stood there, silent. "I'm not trying to get close to him, and he's not that kind of jiggy, right?" Later that evening, she arrived at the bar. He stood there, hands in his pockets, waiting for her and complaining about how late she was. Without another word, he tossed the keys to her. "Thanks," she said, before offering again to treat him to a meal since she had caused him trouble multiple times recently. To her surprise, this time he agreed. "You keep bringing it up. You won't stop until I say yes, right?" he said with a smirk. She asked what he liked to eat, to which he casually replied, "Anything." But when she suggested different options, he rejected all of them. Sometimes due to the smell, sometimes because it was too spicy, and other times simply because he didn't like it. Irritation filled Yi Fan. Is this man even planning to eat? He said anything was fine, yet he's so picky. Then, why don't you suggest something? She asked, exasperated. Before he could reply, his phone rang. "Sang Yan, your house just exploded." Su Haowen's panicked voice came through the line. Sang Yan remained composed, his tone unchanged. "Speak in a language I can understand." Su Haowen quickly explained that a fire had broken out in the apartment below his, spreading to his unit. Still indifferent, Sang Yan responded, "Call the fire department," before turning to walk ahead. Let's go, he ordered. Seeing his unbothered expression, she called after him. Shouldn't we go to your house first? Maintaining his indifferent demeanor, he shot back. Do I look like a firefighter to you? She was speechless. She had never seen someone this calm. One more question, she added, startling him. Could you tell me where your house is so I can inform the station and have them rush to cover it? Her professionalism left him momentarily, speechless. They soon arrived at the scene, where everything was in chaos. Yi Fan's colleagues noticed the man beside her and inquired about him. Upon learning that he was a victim of the fire, they turned to interview him. Sang Yan stood there, looking up at his burning apartment. His face was unreadable, a blank page. Yi Fan noticed the shift in his expression, but before she could say anything, a reporter approached him. Pardon, but how are you feeling at this moment? Sang Yan turned to the reporter and, with a deadpan expression, responded, Oh, I'm feeling very happy. I hope you'll be just as happy as I am. It was impossible to tell whether he was being sarcastic or serious. The reporter continued, Did you suffer any losses? I don't have anything that valuable, he replied indifferently. With that, the reporter wrapped up the interview and thanked him. Before leaving, he turned to Yi Fan and whispered, Please support him. He seems oddly indifferent about everything, and since you're his classmate, maybe you understand him better. She glanced at Sang Yan, feeling a hint of sympathy. Meanwhile, Sang Yan called Su Haowen. Find me a temporary place until the renovations are done. Su Haowen sighed and suggested, Why don't you just go back home? Sang Yan didn't respond to that. Instead, he replied flatly, If you're not going to help, I'll just crash at your place. Having no other choice, Su Haowen asked, All right, which area do you prefer? Sang Yan's eyes drifted to Yi Fan, who was busy talking to someone nearby. Find me a place in the Shangduhua area. Apparently, it was the same area as Yi Fan. On the other side of the call, Su Haowen let out a long sigh. He happened to be sitting with Xiao Fan, who had also asked him earlier to find a replacement roommate. Now, one person needed a place to stay, and another needed a new roommate. Didn't I just get the perfect solution handed to me? He thought with a smirk. The next day, after work, Yi Fan chatted with a colleague on her way home. As she entered her house, she immediately noticed someone was already inside. Both spoke at the same time, startled. What are you doing here? It was Sang Yan. Yi Fan's confusion deepened. I live here. But how did you get in? She asked. Sang Yan raised his hand, effortlessly twirling a keyring around his finger. I just moved in. His tone remained as arrogant and self-assured as ever. Without hesitation, Yi Fan pulled out her phone and called Xiao Fan. Did you give your keys to someone? She demanded, irritation laced in her voice. Xiao Fan, completely unaware, admitted that she had given them to her boyfriend to find a replacement but didn't know who had moved in. It's Sang Yan. Yi Fan exhaled, still trying to process the situation. To her dismay, Xiao Fan seemed rather pleased. Oh, that's actually a great idea. Sang Yan is rich, handsome. Maybe it's fate? She teased. Yi Fan groaned. How is this supposed to be good? Oh? Are you afraid he still has feelings for you? Xiao Fan teased again, but before Yi Fan could respond, she rambled on. Actually, Su Haowen once told me that throughout his 4 years of college, Sang Yan acted like a playboy but never actually had a girlfriend. Never even got involved with anyone. So, maybe he's gay? But then, that's even better, right? There's no issue living with a gay guy. Yi Fan stood in silence, letting her friend's nonsense wash over her. Meanwhile, out on the balcony, Sang Yan was locked in his own argument with Su Haowen. Are you out of your mind? I'm coming to your place right now. His voice was laced with irritation. But Su Haowen was quick to shut him down. Not happening. I'm busy, and my place isn't available. Besides, wasn't it your long-time wish to live with Yi Fan? Sang Yan scoffed. But don't you think it's inappropriate for us to live together? Su Haowen's tone turned smug. Didn't you specifically ask me to find a place in that area? Don't think I don't know what you meant by that area. Sang Yan fell silent. Just thank me, dude. You're literally living with your first love. Who knows? Maybe one day she'll go crazy and fall for you. Sang Yan immediately hung up. Back inside, Yi Fan called out to him, ready to discuss their living situation. Look, I can book you a hotel room for tonight. Tomorrow, we'll figure out a better place for you. And what makes you think I need another place? He asked, smirking. Well, you've always lived alone. I doubt you'd be comfortable sharing a space. His smirk deepened. And what makes you think that? I mean, you can afford to live alone, so it's obvious. Did you forget? My house caught fire. All my money is going into renovations. But you own a bar, she pointed out. But I don't earn that much from it. He folded his arms. She tried again. I work odd hours. I might disturb you. Then just don't make noise when you come home late. He dismissed her reasoning with ease. Yi Fan sighed, realizing she was running out of solid arguments. He noticed her discomfort and let out a breath. Look, it's not permanent. The reconstruction will take 3 months. I'll move out then. And besides, I've already moved in. Leaving now would just be extra effort. She glanced at his single suitcase. But all you have is this suitcase. Sang-yan ignored her skepticism. Sang-yan, we're a man and a woman living under the same roof. Don't you think that's going to be awkward? Leaning against the sofa, he propped his chin on his hand and smirked. Yi Fan, are you worried I still have feelings for you? Afraid I'll start pursuing you again, like I did back then? Caught off guard, she hesitated. No, that's not what I meant. His smirk grew even more teasing. Or is it the other way around? Are you the one who can't forget me? The air between them grew still, but Yi Fan quickly composed herself. No, don't worry, I won't take advantage of you. She smiled, brushing off the tension. Since we're not resolving this tonight, let's calm down and figure it out tomorrow after work. You can stay here for now. She stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. Sang-yan leaned back slightly. What time will you be free? Not sure, but I'll be back by 8. He gave a brief nod, avoiding eye contact as she closed her bedroom door. Alone in the living room, he stared at the floor, lost in thought. The next morning, Yi Fan's phone rang. Half asleep, she picked up. Seeing her mother's name on the screen, she instantly became fully awake. Her father's last words echoed in her mind. Take care of your mother. Her mother's voice came through, asking if she'd be coming home for New Year's. Yi Fan hesitated before asking, Did you talk to Kelsey? Will she be okay with it? Before her mother could answer, her stepsister's voice interrupted in the background, complaining about being held up while shopping. The call ended abruptly. Yi Fan sat there in silence for a while, then set her phone down in silence. Still, distracted, she walked out of her room and noticed Sang-yan's bag was still there, but his shoes were missing. A sudden unease crept in. She quickly made her way to his room, knocking before entering. But as she pushed open the door, it was empty. Meanwhile, inside a hotel room, Sang-yan was still fast asleep when his phone vibrated. Blinking at the screen, he saw a series of messages from Yi Fan. Where were you last night? Where should we meet for our talk? He smirked at the persistence. That night, when Yi Fan returned home, the apartment was still empty. He had told her he'd be back by 8, yet there was no sign of him. Her eyes landed on his keys, still in the same spot he had left them the night before. Did he do this to reassure her? She wondered. Maybe she had been too harsh yesterday. Living with him for 3 months wasn't that bad, was it? He could be annoying and arrogant, but she had known him for a long time. Deep down, she knew he was a good person. Was I too hard on him? The thought filled her with guilt. As she pondered, the doorbell rang. Opening the door, she found him standing there. Come in. Want some coffee? She offered, stepping aside. He walked in, his usual relaxed demeanor intact. Where did you go last night? She asked as she prepared the coffee. A hotel. His answer was simple. Sitting across from him, she decided to get to the point. So, let's talk. Have you thought about what I said yesterday? Instead of answering, he turned the question back on her. Have you? She met his gaze and nodded. Yes. I don't mind having a roommate as long as they're respectful and mind their own business. So, I'm fine with it. He raised a brow. You trust me that much? There's nothing to worry about. His eyes sharpened slightly. But you're the one I'm worried about. She studied him for a moment, her expression saying only one thing. Then don't stay here. But she continued. I barely even talk to my roommates. And if privacy is a concern, you can always lock your door. She then shifted the conversation to practical matters, rent, deposits, and utility bills. He listened with minimal interest, finally cutting in. Just tell me the total amount. Ignoring his impatience, she moved on to house rules. No noise at night while sleeping. Done, he agreed effortlessly. No revealing clothes in shared spaces. His lips curved into a smirk. Revealing? You wish? She pressed on. And we need to notify each other before bringing guests over, regardless of gender. If you have a girlfriend, she should know this in advance. He remained unfazed. Don't worry about that. Something about his confidence made her glance up. I don't have a girlfriend. His tone was casual, but his gaze was steady. She looked away. Oh, that's fine then. Sensing her discomfort, he added with a teasing smile. But don't get too excited, okay? I'm just not interested in dating right now. Her expression clearly asked, Why are you telling me this? With a small smile, she concluded, All right. We'll revisit this rule if either of us starts dating. And I'll let you know if I get a boyfriend. And with that, they became temporary roommates. Sang-yan inspected his room before abruptly deciding he wanted Yi Fan's instead. His reasoning? He simply liked it better. Yi Fan, confused, questioned why he would prefer a smaller space over the spacious master bedroom, especially since she couldn't even afford the rent for it. But, as stubborn as ever, Sang Yan dismissed her concerns, stating that he would be covering the rent and, since he was paying more, he had the right to choose whichever room he liked. Without waiting for further argument, he turned away, ending the discussion. Still baffled, Yi Fan pressed him for a reason, only for him to nonchalantly reply that the room smelled. The absurdity of his reasoning made her frown, but there was no point in arguing with someone as unreasonable as him. After reluctantly moving all her belongings, she settled into her new room. Lying down, she wondered if there truly was any odor in this room. But questioning the demands of a confident and entitled prince like Sang Yan was pointless. He had always been like this, even in high school. Her thoughts drifted back to the past. She recalled the day they had arrived late for class, and rumors about them had already begun spreading. Su Haoen had been the one to bring it up, recounting the various versions of their supposed relationship. Sang Yan, indifferent as ever, had barely reacted. But Su Haoen had pressed further, insisting that it was impossible for Sang Yan to have no feelings for a girl as pretty as Yi Fan. His words had been met with nothing but silence, until Sang Yan turned, catching sight of Yi Fan standing nearby. With his usual smirk, he casually remarked that everyone was talking about them dating. Yi Fan had been startled by his sudden words, but as always, he had stood there with unwavering confidence, just like he did today. Later that night, as she stepped out for water, she unexpectedly found Sang Yan standing in front of her. Fresh out of the shower, water dripped from his damp hair down to his neck. Her gaze involuntarily followed the movement, lips pressing together as she quickly averted her eyes. Without a word, she turned and hurried back to her room, leaving him behind. Sharing a living space with him was still an adjustment. The next morning, as Yi Fan prepared breakfast, her phone buzzed with an incoming video call from Zhang Siqiao. The moment she answered, Zhang Siqiao excitedly announced that she had found a new roommate for her. At the mention of a replacement, Sang Yan, who had been casually listening in the background, suddenly turned his attention toward the conversation. The screen displayed the face of Xiang Lang, a familiar friend from high school, now back in the country. Yi Fan greeted him warmly, exchanging pleasantries. However, as soon as his name was mentioned, Sang Yan seemed visibly unsettled. Zhang Siqiao enthusiastically suggested that Xiang Lang could move in as her new roommate. Yi Fan glanced at Sang Yan, then responded that she had already found someone. A small, almost imperceptible smile appeared on Sang Yan's face. After the call ended, Sang Yan casually inquired about her plans for Wednesday. When she mentioned she was going out and meeting Xiang Lang, she expected him to acknowledge their shared history. But instead, he feigned ignorance, claiming not to remember who Xiang Lang was. Yi Fan found that hard to believe. Her mind drifted back to the past again. She had walked into class one day to find every head turning toward her, whispers of rumors filling the air. Ignoring them, she took her seat. But moments later, Sang Yan entered, dragging a student behind him and shoving him forward in front of her. The boy, looking utterly terrified, was forced to apologize. Shocked, Yi Fan instinctively apologized as well, despite not understanding what was happening. The classroom fell into stunned silence. Sang Yan, unimpressed by the boy's weak attempt, barked at him to speak properly. The boy immediately confessed that he had spread the rumor. He had seen Yi Fan with Xiang Lang and assumed she had dumped Sang Yan for him. Sang Yan, ever indifferent but known for holding grudges, made it clear that anyone who spread rumors again would face consequences. Then, with an air of arrogance, he turned to the boy, demanding an apology for himself as well. The rumor had not only painted Yi Fan in a bad light, but it had also made it seem as though Sang Yan had been heartbroken after being left for Xiang Lang. And that, he declared, was ridiculous. Anyone he pursued would only have eyes for him and no one else. Now, years later, that same arrogant boy was asking for Yi Fan's help in business. As his supposed roommate, he wanted her to hold a reunion at his bar, even offering her a discount. Surprised, Yi Fan questioned if his bar was struggling. Then, without thinking, she offhandedly remarked that perhaps it was because it looked like a barber shop. Sang Yan smirked at the remark and asked if it was really that bad. Then why had she gone there in the first place? Realizing she couldn't reveal their actual reason for visiting that night, Yi Fan fell silent. Later, Yi Fan met a man for an interview as part of her work as a journalist. As she was leaving, she unexpectedly ran into her stepsister, Zheng Kejia. Growing up, Kejia had always had an issue with Yi Fan staying at their house. Without hesitation, Yi Fan made it clear that even though she was back in the city, she had no intention of staying with them, so Kejia didn't need to worry. Kejia then asked if Yi Fan would be coming home for the traditional New Year. Yi Fan firmly declined, stating that she had no issues with them but simply wanted to live her own life. Her mind drifted back to the past. After her father passed away, her mother had moved in with her new husband, leaving Yi Fan in the care of her grandmother. Soon after, her grandmother had sent her to live with her uncle and aunt. She had been passed from one household to another, never having a place to truly call home. She remembered a particular day when she had sat at a bus stop, clutching her knees. She had lost the $20 her aunt had given her and was too afraid to return home, fearing she would be abandoned once again. A voice had called out to her. Sang Yan. His smile had been as bright as the sun as he crouched in front of her, asking why she looked so down. Hesitantly, she had asked if he had $20. Sang Yan had just come from playing basketball and didn't have any money on him. But instead of leaving, he had stood up, telling her to wait for 5 minutes. He had placed his ball in her lap before running off. Yi Fan had wrapped her arms around the ball, waiting. Soon his voice had called out again, breathless as he ran back toward her. As he reached her, he was panting, trying to catch his breath before handing her the money he had gone to get. Yi Fan had struggled to hold back her tears as she took it, whispering her thanks. With a reassuring smile, Sang Yan had asked why she still looked down, and had promised her that if she ever needed anything, she could come to him. He would always help her. Now, standing at that same bus stop, lost in the memory, Yi Fan's phone rang. It was her mother. Her voice was strained, almost hesitant, as she asked why Yi Fan hadn't told her she was back in the city. Kezia had already informed her. Yi Fan, not wanting to circle around the topic, asked directly what she wanted. On the other end, she could hear her mother's quiet sobs. Between them, she apologized, saying she knew she hadn't been a good mother these past few years. Yi Fan assured her that she was indeed a good mother, not just to her, but those last words remained unspoken. Later that night, when Yi Fan reached home, she saw that Sang Yan was still awake. Noticing her, he casually mentioned that he was very conscious about his safety and couldn't sleep unless he was sure the door was locked. His tone carried its usual teasing lilt, but there was a flicker of sincerity beneath it. Yi Fan sighed, offering a quick reassurance that she would always lock the door properly, but Sang Yan wasn't convinced. With the same casual arrogance, he added that from now on, if she planned to stay out past 10, she should inform him in advance, so he wouldn't have to stay up all night waiting. Faced with no other choice, Yi Fan begrudgingly agreed. On Wednesday evening, as Yi Fan prepared to leave, she noticed Sang Yan also heading out. Their timing, as always, seemed unintentionally aligned. Stepping outside, she spotted Su Haoen waiting nearby, seemingly for Sang Yan. Realizing that almost everyone present, and they all had attended the same high school, she casually mentioned that Sang Yan was now her roommate. For a moment, there was a collective silence, their expressions shifting between disbelief, amusement, and curiosity. Yet, Sang Yan remained as nonchalant as ever, casually remarking that she didn't need to brag about him. The reaction left everyone baffled. Su Haoen, never one to let things slide, immediately teased him for being shameless, earning himself a glare from Sang Yan. His amusement was short-lived. Originally, Su Haoen had planned to meet Sang Yan alone, but seeing that everyone was already gathered, he suggested they all go out together. No one objected, and soon they found themselves seated around a dinner table. The dinner began with Siqiao and Xianglang reminiscing about their childhood memories with Yi Fan. As the conversation flowed, Xianglang brought up Yi Fan's clumsy habits from their childhood. Through it all, Sang Yan remained quiet, sipping his drink, his expression unreadable. Unlike the others, he did not laugh or reminisce. His focus shifted, and Su Haoen, unfortunately, bore the brunt of his irritation. From time to time, Yi Fan glanced at Sang Yan. At some point, their eyes met. It lasted only a moment, but the intensity behind his gaze caught her off guard. Quickly, she averted her gaze, bringing her drink to her lips. After dinner, they moved to Sang Yan's bar. Despite the change of location, Sang Yan made no effort to leave Yi Fan's side. He sat beside her, his presence unwavering. Siqiao, always perceptive, leaned in closer to Yi Fan, whispering her thoughts. She remarked that living with Sang Yan must be exhausting, given how he hadn't smiled once the entire evening. His expression made it seem like someone owed him $1 million. Yi Fan said nothing, merely giving a small, knowing smile. The night progressed with games, and Su Haoen, full of energy, suggested playing liar's dice. Before they started, he issued a warning to Yi Fan. She needed to be careful. Sang Yan was particularly skilled at this game, and unfortunately he was seated right next to her. As the rounds began, Su Haoen's luck was abysmal. Round after round he lost, forced to drink each time, while Sang Yan, completely unfazed, remained undefeated. Finally, after losing several rounds in a row, Su Haoen threw up his hands in frustration, begging Sang Yan for mercy. To everyone's surprise, Sang Yan agreed. It was now Yi Fan's turn to lose a round. Instead of drinking, she opted to draw a penalty card. Her task? She had to state one good quality about each person of the opposite gender. She started with Xianglang, noting his attentiveness to details. Then, Su Haoen, his passion and enthusiasm were undeniable. Finally, her gaze landed on Sang Yan. For a moment, she hesitated. He watched her, waiting. His usual confidence remained, but beneath it, there was something else, a quiet curiosity. After a brief pause, she spoke. One word. Rich. The answer was unexpected, yet undeniably true. As the game continued, it was Xiang Lang's turn to lose. He chose to draw a penalty card, and upon reading it, the card prompted him to reveal something he regretted. Without hesitation, he admitted that his biggest regret was not being able to attend college with Yi Fan. His parents had sent him abroad, altering the course of what could have been. At this revelation, Sang Yan's expression flickered, subtle, almost imperceptible. Before Xiang Lang could elaborate further, Sang Yan cut him off, announcing the next round's score. This time, he lost. Su Haowen, thrilled to finally see Sang Yan on the losing end, seized the opportunity to make him play truth or dare. Drawing a card for him, he read the question aloud. What was the most recent city you flew to? Without hesitation, Sang Yan answered, Yihei. The answer landed heavily. Yi Fan's head turned sharply toward him. Yihei, the city where she had attended college after high school. She stared at him, caught off guard by the unexpected answer. He had been there? When? Why? Before the thoughts could settle, Sang Yan abruptly stood up. With a vague excuse about heading home early, he stepped away from the gathering. Yi Fan watched him go, still unsettled by what he had just revealed. Instead of going home, Sang Yan found himself on the second floor of the bar, cigarette between his lips, the ember glowing dimly in the dark. Leaning against the railing, he exhaled slowly. Footsteps approached from behind. Su Haowen's voice broke the silence, casual but probing. At first, he simply pointed out the contradiction. Sang Yan had said he was going home, yet here he was. Then, without preamble, he brought up Xiang Lang. Still, Sang Yan said nothing, taking another drag of his cigarette. Undeterred, Su Haowen pressed further, asking the question directly. Did he still have feelings for Yi Fan? He didn't wait for an answer. Instead, he continued, reasoning that if Yi Fan and Xiang Lang ever had feelings for each other, they would have acted on them long ago. Yet, Sang Yan remained cold and distant, unwilling to acknowledge anything. It was as if he had been handed an opportunity on a silver platter, yet refused to take it. Annoyed at his friend's silence, Su Haowen boldly suggested that Sang Yan seek his advice. After all, he prided himself on being a ladies' man. At this, Sang Yan finally turned to him, his gaze sharp, indifferent, and utterly unimpressed. His words, when they came, were brutally direct. His response was blunt. He wasn't crazy enough to have a heart-to-heart with him, and Su Haowen was far from being a so-called ladies' man. The statement landed like a stone, knocking Su Haowen's confidence straight to the ground. Flustered, he lashed back, reminding Sang Yan that just because his ex had cheated on him didn't mean he was any less experienced. Even if his ex had betrayed him, he was still rich and handsome. That should have been enough. But as he glanced at Sang Yan, also rich, also handsome, yet still single and living with his first love as a mere roommate, he realized something. Perhaps wealth and looks weren't the only things that mattered. A few days later, Yi Fan's colleague informed her that a video of Sang Yan's interview had gone viral. Concerned, she asked if it would cause any trouble for him, but her colleague reassured her that since his face was censored, it wouldn't be an issue. That evening, when Yi Fan returned home, she immediately noticed that every appliance in the house was brand new. It made her wonder if Sang Yan had finally come home after being absent since their last dinner. She knew the little prince had high living standards, but she grew worried about the cost, realizing that she would also have to split the expenses. Her phone buzzed, showing a notification of Sang Yan's viral video. It was circulating everywhere, with people commenting on how he managed to be both handsome, arrogant, and miserable at the same time. She found it amusing and was quietly enjoying it when she suddenly noticed Sang Yan nearby. Quickly, she closed the video before he could catch her watching it. She brought up the topic of splitting the expenses, asking him to send his share. Without much reaction, he simply agreed, his tone distant as if he was ignoring her. Before she could dwell on it, Siqiao called, and their conversation shifted to how they would be spending New Year's. Yi Fan casually mentioned that she had no plans and just wanted to rest, sleeping through the occasion. Unbeknownst to her, Sang Yan, who had been silent until now, was listening to every word. On New Year's Eve, Yi Fan sat comfortably on the sofa, flipping through TV channels, enjoying the quiet night. A message from Sang Yan popped up. He wouldn't be coming home, so she could help herself to the food. Not long after, another message arrived from her mother, asking if she would come home for the celebration. Yi Fan simply replied that she had work, declining the invitation. She didn't want to return to that house. A sudden knock at the door startled her. Confused about who it could be at this hour, she peeked through the peephole before hurriedly opening the door. Sang Yan stood there. As he stepped inside, she hesitated before asking why he had come back. Casually, he responded that the house was too crowded with guests and he had nowhere to sleep. The atmosphere between them was slightly awkward as they sat watching the New Year's program in silence. Suddenly, Sang-yan stood up, causing Yifan to jolt slightly at the unexpected movement. He headed toward the kitchen, and as she followed, he mentioned that he had accidentally prepared too much food and needed help finishing it. He carefully added each ingredient, pausing to confirm her preferences, as if he was making it specifically for her. They soon sat together, sharing the meal. As Yifan took her first bite, Sang-yan watched her closely, as if waiting for something. Finally, she complimented the food, and he exhaled quietly, as though that was the reaction he had been hoping for. She teased him about his cooking skills, and he responded with his usual confidence, claiming there was nothing he couldn't do. However, she pointed out that he clearly hadn't mastered making a single portion of noodles. Yifan stood up to get more noodles, and as she moved, Sang-yan observed her with a faint smile. He knew she was home alone and wouldn't eat properly if left to herself. He couldn't let that happen. As the clock struck midnight, marking the arrival of the new year, Yifan glanced at him. He was still focused on his game, seemingly uninterested. She stood up, ready to head to her room, but before leaving, she turned back. "Happy New Year, Sang-yan." He didn't look up, still engrossed in his game, and casually returned the greeting. But as the door to her room shut behind her, he finally lifted his head, a faint smile lingering on his face. As Yifan lay in bed, she realized that this was their first reunion meal together, and a sense of nostalgia washed over her. 7 years ago, when she transferred to Baeyu from Nanwu due to her constantly changing living situation, she had once received an unexpected message from Sang-yan. He had come to Baeyu to visit her and was waiting. Without hesitation, she rushed out, and there he was, standing before her, smiling as brightly as ever. That was the first time they had a meal together. From then on, Sang-yan would occasionally visit, and without fail, they would sit down for a meal. It became a quiet ritual between them, one that neither questioned. They never delved into personal matters, never talked about the things left unspoken. They simply ate, and once the meal was finished, Sang-yan would leave. Over time, it felt less like coincidence and more like an unspoken excuse, an unacknowledged reason for them to meet. And tonight, it felt just like one of those days. The next day, Sang-yan brought his sister, Sang-ji, home, informing Yifan beforehand. As soon as Sang-ji saw Yifan, she turned abruptly to Sang-yan, her eyes filled with curiosity. Without hesitation, she asked if Yifan was his girlfriend. A brief silence followed. Sang-yan was so taken aback that he failed to respond. Before he could recover, Yifan smiled and clarified that they were merely roommates. Sang-ji's expression fell, visibly disappointed that such a pretty girl was only his brother's roommate. Still intrigued, Sang-ji pressed further, asking if Yifan had been her brother's high school classmate. Yifan was surprised that Sang-ji even remembered her, considering they had only met once, when she was lost. But to Yifan's surprise, Sang-ji admitted the truth. That day, she had not been lost at all. It had all been orchestrated by Sang-yan. 8 years ago, Sang-yan had pleaded with Sang-ji to pretend she was lost in front of the girl standing by the library. Initially, Sang-ji refused, but when he bribed her with the promise of ice cream, she hesitantly agreed. With some reluctance, she rehearsed her lines before being nudged forward by her brother. Meanwhile, Sang-yan stood nervously behind the wall, anxiously awaiting the outcome. But when she finally reached Yifan, standing before her and seeing the genuine concern in her eyes, Sang-ji froze, completely forgetting everything she had practiced. Sang-yan, watching from a distance, panicked at the sight of them staring blankly at each other. Desperate, he made a slight noise to alert Sang-ji. Snapping out of her daze, she hastily pointed in a random direction, claiming she had lost her way. Yifan instinctively took her hand and led her in that direction, only to find Sang-yan waiting there, as if by pure coincidence. Back at present, Yifan handed Sang-ji a pair of extra home slippers, and assured her that if she needed anything, she could just ask before retreating to her room. As she left, Sang-ji, lazily snacking, leaned against the kitchen counter and eyed her brother curiously. With a casual tone, she asked why he was living with a girl. Sang-yan, focused on chopping vegetables, responded indifferently, dismissing the need to answer such a question. Unfazed, Sang-ji smirked and offhandedly remarked that it must be because he liked Yifan. Her brother remained silent. Taking his lack of denial as confirmation, she went on, teasing that while she was on his side, Yifan was way out of his league. He should, at the very least, have some self-awareness. Sang-yan finally turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Self-awareness?" he echoed, his tone laced with amusement. In his usual nonchalant manner, he scoffed that it wasn't him who needed self-awareness. Rather, it was the people who fell for him. Sang-ji kept reading, ignoring her brother as if saying whatever. Later, as they set the table for dinner, Sang-ji glanced at Yifan's closed door and asked if he was going to invite her. Sang-yan shrugged, saying that if she was so concerned, she could call Yifan herself. Rolling her eyes, Sang-ji ignored him and began eating. As Sang-yeon sipped his drink, he lazily remarked how people should at least be kind to those who were good to them. His meaning was clear. Sang-ji sighed, reading between the lines. He wanted Yi Fan to join them, but his pride wouldn't let him admit it. Resigned, she stood up and knocked on Yi Fan's door, inviting her to dinner. Yi Fan initially declined, not wanting to intrude on a family meal. But Sang-ji lowered her voice and whispered that having dinner alone with her brother was unbearable. Finally, Yi Fan relented and joined them. As they ate, the two girls chatted comfortably, and Sang-ji took the opportunity to complain about her brother's annoying habits. The conversation naturally shifted, and Yi Fan casually asked which university Sang-ji planned to attend. She mentioned that she was considering either Nanwoo or Yihai University but hadn't decided yet. From personal experience, Yi Fan noted that Yihai was far, and its climate was completely different from Nanwoo. Hearing this, Sang-ji's eyes widened in surprise. She hadn't realized Yi Fan had graduated from Yihai. Curious, she asked what Yi Fan had majored in. Mass communication, Yi Fan answered. Sang-ji frowned. But Nanwoo has a better mass communication program. Why did you choose Yihai instead? The question made both Yi Fan and Sang-yeon pause. Sang-yeon set down his drink, crossed his arms, and turned to her with a pointed look. He too wanted to hear the answer to that. Avoiding his gaze, Yi Fan explained that mass communication hadn't been her first choice. She had initially wanted a different major, but didn't get into her preferred program, so she chose it later. The atmosphere shifted slightly, tension creeping in. Sensing the change, Sang-ji swiftly changed the subject. After dinner, as they cleared the table, she hesitated before asking Yi Fan a question. If she didn't want to answer, she could ignore it. When Yi Fan nodded, Sang-ji leaned in and asked if she had dated Sang-yeon in high school. Yi Fan chuckled at the unexpected question and denied it. Sang-ji, however, mentioned that her parents had once hinted that her brother had been dating someone. Before she could say anything more, Sang-yeon called out, insisting it was time to take her home before it got too late. As they left, Yi Fan's mind lingered on Sang-ji's words. His parents had mentioned a girl. Could they have been referring to her? After all, there had been a time when the rumors about them had escalated so much that their parents had even been called in. Even if it had been a misunderstanding, the rumors never truly faded. Inside the car, Sang-ji confronted her brother, questioning whether his behavior was his way of flirting. Sang-yeon merely glanced at her without responding. Undeterred, Sang-ji continued, pressing him on why he was acting so cold toward Yi Fan. She pointed out that Yi Fan was pretty and completely out of his league, while he was unemployed, indifferent, and inconsiderate. The chances of a girl like Yi Fan falling for him were slim, she argued, adding that women usually preferred men who were gentle, polite, and attentive. Sang-yeon finally raised an eyebrow, asking if her ideal type was Dwan Jaksu, his old college roommate. Sang-ji's face turned red instantly. Avoiding his gaze, she turned away, refusing to answer. A few days later, Yi Fan finally gave in to her mother's persistent requests and visited her home. Her mother greeted her warmly, excitedly mentioning that she could finally meet her younger brother. She added that Yi Fan's stepsister now lived on campus and that her stepfather was out, but their aunt was there to see her. At the mention of her aunt, Yi Fan's expression shifted, her eyes widening slightly. As the door opened, her aunt welcomed her with a practiced smile, but Yi Fan's demeanor immediately became guarded. They sat together, and her aunt casually inquired about her job and life. When Yi Fan's mother stepped away to get fruit, her aunt's tone turned calculating. She commented on Yi Fan's looks, suggesting that a pretty girl like her didn't need to work so hard. She then casually proposed an arrangement. Her uncle had a wealthy friend who, despite being a little older, would take good care of her. As if that wasn't enough, she hinted that Yi Fan should contribute financially to her cousin's upcoming wedding, given how their family had taken care of her all these years. Yi Fan remained silent at first, listening without expression. Then, in a calm voice, she mentioned that she also knew someone wealthy, someone who happened to be interested in men. She could introduce him to her cousin. Her aunt's face twisted in fury as she began shouting, but Yi Fan was unfazed. She stood up and declared that she would never come back again. Fulfilling her father's last wish to look after her mother had been her duty, but now, she was done. From now on, they could consider her as good as dead. Without waiting for a response, she walked out. Back at home, Sang-yeon sat on the couch, casually playing his game as usual. Yi Fan entered without a word, heading straight to her room and shutting the door behind her. He glanced up briefly, noting her unusual behavior. Something was wrong. After a moment, he picked up his phone and sent her a message. Hours passed. It was now past 2:30 a.m., and he still hadn't received a reply. He got up, walked to the bathroom, and placed his phone on high volume before stepping into the shower. Every so often, he peeked at the screen, but there was still no response. Finishing his shower, he checked again, wondering if she had simply fallen asleep. Just as he stepped out, he froze. Yi Fan was standing there. With his usual smirk, he teased her, asking if she had been waiting outside his door to catch a glimpse of a handsome man fresh out of the shower. But before he could finish his words, Yi Fan suddenly rushed forward, straight into his arms. His eyes widened in shock. He looked down. This wasn't a dream. It was Yi Fan, and she was hugging him. His heart pounded loudly against his chest. He could see the curve of her back against him, feel the warmth of her body pressed close. Instinctively, he started to lift his hand, hesitating just before touching her. He gulped. He couldn't do it. Attempting to retreat, he took a small step back, trying to create some distance, but Yi Fan only tightened her hold around him, refusing to let go. He remained frozen, staring down at the girl who was now snuggled into his embrace. His mind raced, struggling to process what was happening. Finally, breaking the silence, he spoke, his voice lower than usual. "What are you doing? Can you explain yourself at least? How long do you plan to keep hugging me?" After a moment, she slowly released him, straightening herself. She mumbled something incoherent under her breath, barely loud enough to hear. He tilted his head, trying to catch her words, but before he could ask, she turned away abruptly and walked straight to her room. He called out her name, confused, but she ignored him, shutting the door behind her. Sang-yan remained standing in place, staring blankly at the closed door. His expression shifted from bewilderment to something unreadable. A faint blush crept onto his face as he let out a deep sigh, rubbing the back of his neck in frustration. The next morning, Yi Fan woke up feeling refreshed. Meanwhile, Sang-yan sat at the breakfast table, exhausted, having barely slept. His gaze was fixed intently on her door. Checking her phone, Yi Fan finally noticed his message from the night before. Confused, she asked what he had meant. Sang-yan, still at a loss for words, simply sent a question mark in response. On the other end, Yi Fan, clueless about the situation, replied with 3 question marks of her own. Frustrated but still unsure how to bring it up, he finally sent a thumbs-up emoji, ending the conversation. As he set his phone down, his expression was a mix of frustration and disbelief. The ever-cool and indifferent Sang-yan was now blushing, unable to shake off the memory of last night. After some time, Yi Fan emerged from her room for breakfast. Noticing Sang-yan still standing there, she casually asked about his earlier message. He stared at her for a moment, his expression unreadable, before suddenly bursting into laughter, amusement flickering in his eyes. "Are you really going to pretend like nothing happened?" Yi Fan blinked, momentarily puzzled. She assumed he was upset because she hadn't greeted him the night before. With a slight frown, she sincerely apologized, promising to be more mindful of it in the future. Sang-yan's laughter faded, his expression turning serious. He met her gaze and spoke firmly. "This isn't something small to me. If something like that happens again in the future, I expect an explanation." Yi Fan stared at him, confusion evident on her face. Why was he making such a big deal out of her not saying hello? For Yi Fan, it had felt like a dream, one where she wandered alone in a dark forest, unable to find her way out. Just as fear threatened to consume her, a brilliant light appeared before her, warm and radiant like the sun. Instinctively, she reached out, embracing it tightly, basking in its comforting warm glow. Later that evening, as Yi Fan returned home, she found Sang-yan in the elevator, engaged in a casual conversation with someone. As they entered the apartment, he continued speaking to his friend about a girl who had hugged his friend unexpectedly, only to act as if nothing had happened afterward. Curious, he turned to Yi Fan, seeking a woman's perspective on the matter. Yi Fan responded indifferently, stating that it depended on their relationship. Amused, Sang-yan pressed on, elaborating that the girl was head over heels for his friend. Yi Fan chuckled, remarking that if she truly had feelings for him, it was natural for her to act that way. A smug smile curled on Sang-yan's lips as he entertained the thought, relishing the possibility. But before he could fully indulge in his fantasy, Yi Fan added that his friend might also be overthinking the situation. Her words instantly shattered his illusion, erasing the grin from his face. That night, as Yi Fan retired to her room, Sang-yan lounged on the sofa, aimlessly flipping through television channels, frustration evident in his restless demeanor. Perhaps he truly was overanalyzing the situation. Maybe it meant nothing at all. The following morning, Yi Fan visited the police station for work. As she and her colleague discussed potential roommate replacements, she noticed a young man being interviewed. He looked oddly familiar. Sensing her gaze, he turned to her, asking if something was on his face. Flustered, she admitted he seemed familiar. Without hesitation, he took a piece of paper, scribbled something, and handed it to her. It was his signature. Confused, but assuming he must be a celebrity, she awkwardly thanked him. Later that day, Sang-yan messaged Yi Fan, instructing her to meet him at a shopping center. While waiting outside, she scrolled through her phone, searching for information on the mysterious man she had met earlier. She was so engrossed in her search that she didn't notice Sang Yan approaching from behind. He leaned in, whispering in her ear if that was her type. Startled, she turned to see him looking at her phone. She pulled away and asked if he hadn't finished shopping yet, but he entered the market and asked her to help. As they entered the store, Sang Yan took charge of the shopping, effortlessly filling their basket, while Yi Fan meticulously compared prices. Amused by her frugality, he teased her, likening her intense focus to exam preparation. With a smirk, he plucked an item from her hands and dropped it into the cart, dismissing her overthinking. At the checkout counter, Yi Fan casually inquired about his plans to move out, as it had already been 2 months since they began living together. Sang Yan, ever smug, asked if she was eager to get rid of him. She clarified that she simply needed to prepare in case he left so she wouldn't have to cover the full rent alone. As they exited the store, Sang Yan carried the heavier bags while Yi Fan insisted on helping. He handed her an umbrella instead, instructing her to ensure he didn't get wet. As they walked, he noticed raindrops landing on her hair and subtly urged her to tilt the umbrella more toward herself, making an excuse about his view being obstructed. Though confused, Yi Fan complied with his request. That evening, at Yi Fan's suggestion, they watched a horror movie. While she thoroughly enjoyed it, Sang Yan was scared, struggling to watch it. As she prepared to head to bed, he taunted her, questioning whether she was afraid to sleep alone after watching the film. She dismissed his teasing, but before she could leave, he called out again, asking her to sit beside him, insisting that if she was scared too, he was there. She knew she wasn't scared, but the way he said it made her wonder, was it possible that he was? Her mind drifted back to high school when they had watched a horror movie in class. Back then, Sang Yan had simply slept through the entire film. Lost in thought, she suddenly realized how close he had leaned in. As she turned her head, their faces were mere inches apart. Before she could react, he nonchalantly reached for his drink, breaking the tension. Her phone rang, breaking the moment entirely. Seeing her aunt's name on the screen, she immediately declined the call, blocking the number before wishing Sang Yan a good night. Meanwhile, Sang Yan received a message from Su Hawan, asking if he planned to move in now that his apartment renovations were complete. Staring at Yi Fan's closed door, Sang Yan hesitated. He wasn't ready to leave yet. He needed more time. At 3 a.m., Yi Fan's door creaked open. She walked out, heading toward the living room. Sang Yan, still awake, watched her curiously. When she remained silent, he called out to her, but there was no response. A chill ran down his spine as she continued walking, completely ignoring him. Growing uneasy, he waved his hand in front of her face. Still no reaction. Instead, she walked past him and returned to her room, shutting the door behind her. The next morning, Yi Fan greeted him cheerfully, as if nothing had happened. At the breakfast table, Sang Yan stared at her, debating whether to bring up the incident. In the end, he decided against it, at least for now. When Yi Fan met Sixiao, she mentioned that she had recently encountered a girl named Jenny, who used to be crazy about Sang Yan during their high school days. One day, Jenny had called Sang Yan aside and questioned him about whether he was truly interested in Yi Fan. As usual, Sang Yan refused to answer, simply stating that it had nothing to do with her. Jenny had then noticed Yi Fan standing behind them and pretending to be naive, said she didn't believe such rumors before boldly proposing to Sang Yan. He too had noticed someone behind him, turned to see that it was Yi Fan, and then turned back to Jenny to reject her proposal. Yi Fan still remembered how Jenny had continued to pursue Sang Yan for a long time afterward, but he had firmly rejected her each time. Sixiao had then turned to Yi Fan, questioning if there had really been nothing between her and Sang Yan. She spoke about how Sang Yan, despite being aloof, was undeniably handsome, and how he had treated Yi Fan during high school. Everyone knew how much he liked her, so much so that no one dared to offend Yi Fan. She agreed that all of it was indeed true. Sixiao, curious, asked if she had ever felt anything for him. Even if she hadn't, she pointed out, anyone could have been moved by his affectionate actions. Yi Fan had silently taken a sip of her coffee before calmly admitting that she had feelings for him, startling Sixiao, who had asked again in disbelief. Yi Fan had nodded quietly, biting her lips. Sixiao had then asked whether she still had feelings for him. Yi Fan replied that it had been a long time, and it didn't matter anymore. But Sixiao disagreed, pointing out that they were living under the same roof and old feelings could always resurface. Yi Fan, however, was certain it wouldn't happen, as he would be moving out soon anyway. Sixiao had then raised a more serious question, why they hadn't gotten together back then, despite having mutual feelings. Yi Fan explained that people always told her she was a distant girl, someone who didn't keep in touch often. She had also heard others say that she lacked empathy and warmth. When Sixiao pressed her about why she believed what others said, Yi Fan said she wasn't simply believing others, it was how she truly felt when she was with Sang Yan. He was someone who deserved more than she could give. A bright boy who deserved someone capable of pouring their whole heart into him. And in her eyes, she was not that girl. Siqiao assured her that she was beautiful and considerate, questioning why she would put herself down like that. Yi Fan recalled an incident from the time she had stayed at her aunt's place. Her aunt had made a good soup for her son. When her cousin declined to drink it and asked her aunt to give it to Yi Fan instead, her aunt had said that something this good was not meant for Yi Fan. At the time, she hadn't thought much of it, but when she saw how good Sang Yan was, she began to believe that she didn't deserve his love. Siqiao asked about how Sang Yan felt now, but Yi Fan was certain that he no longer had any feelings for her, because she had hurt him even though he had always treated her so well. She remembered the day their parents were called. It was her aunt and uncle who had shown up. Sang Yan had seen them, but he hadn't been able to do anything besides watch her from a distance. When they reached home, her aunt and uncle had scolded her harshly. She had apologized, but they didn't believe her and said they had no obligation to take care of her. Tears had streamed down her face as she called her mother, pleading for her to take her back home. She begged to be allowed to live with her younger sister, but her mother only scolded her and ended the call. She had stared at the screen with tears falling down her cheeks. All she had wanted was a home, but there had been no one to take her home. Then her phone rang again. This time it was Sang Yan. He asked with concern if she had been scolded and apologized, saying he never expected a mere rumor to cause her so much trouble. But with a trembling voice, she had only said harsh words, asking him to stop bothering her anymore. After that day, they had never spoken again at school. When Yi Fan transferred to Beiyou, Sang Yan had regularly sent his scores to her. Later, he started visiting her from time to time, but they never talked about that call. They simply stopped discussing anything personal and would only eat noodles together in silence. Siqiao had tried to assure her that it wasn't a big issue and that she could talk to him, but for Yi Fan, it had already been too long. Still, Siqiao insisted. It's never too late to apologize. When Yi Fan returned home, she glanced at Sang Yan, unsure how to bring up the topic weighing on her mind. Instead, she chose to ease into the conversation with a random subject, casually asking about his work apart from owning the bar. Sang Yan, engrossed in his game, responded without much thought, questioning why she was suddenly interested. Yi Fan explained that she hadn't seen him going to work regularly. Confidently, Sang Yan assured her that plenty of companies were eager to hire him. He was simply letting them fight it out while he took his time to decide. Shifting the topic, Yi Fan asked about the status of his house renovation. Sang Yan informed her that it was still ongoing and had been delayed due to the festive season. Moreover, he added that the place still smelled unpleasant, so he wouldn't be moving out anytime soon. Suddenly, Yi Fan pointed toward the television, asking what the man on screen was doing. Sang Yan glanced at the TV, watched for a moment, and then turned to her, remarking that the man seemed to be sleepwalking, probably why he wouldn't remember anything later. He made the comment while observing her reaction. Yi Fan nodded in agreement, her eyes still fixed on the screen. Curious, Sang Yan asked how she knew about sleepwalking. Yi Fan replied truthfully that she used to sleepwalk in the past, though it hadn't happened in a long time. Raising a brow, Sang Yan questioned how she was so sure. Yi Fan turned to him, surprised, and asked if he had seen her do it. He nodded with certainty. Alarmed, she immediately asked what she had done during those episodes and whether he had been scared. But Sang Yan replied with calm assurance that she had simply walked out, sat for a while, and then gone back to her room. And as for fear, he wasn't someone to be easily frightened. Letting out a sigh, Yi Fan asked him to just ignore her if it happened again. But Sang Yan revealed that it had already happened twice. Yi Fan's eyes widened, and she asked what she had done the second time. He paused for a moment, his expression turning thoughtful as if trying to remember. He said she had first run toward him and hugged him tightly. Yi Fan's breath caught, waiting for him to continue. Then, with a slight smirk, he added that she had kissed him. Her face turned red instantly. He looked at her with amusement, trying not to laugh, then leaned in slightly, teasingly pointing out that she was blushing. Embarrassed, Yi Fan averted her gaze, mumbling something about having spicy food earlier. After a moment's silence, she asked whether he was exaggerating. Sang Yan looked at her with mock offense, questioning how she could accuse him of lying when he was the one being taken advantage of. Curious, Yi Fan asked why he hadn't told her earlier. Sang Yan said he had tried but couldn't bring himself to, and perhaps her actions were a reflection of what she truly wanted deep down. In a sly tone, Yi Fan asked where exactly she had kissed him. The question seemed to take him by surprise. He hesitated, then slowly raised his hand and pointed to the corner of his lips. But Yi Fan, thinking rationally, raised suspicion, given their height difference. How could she have reached there? Sang Yan sighed, saying it was fine if she didn't want to accept the truth. Determined, Yi Fan stood up and told him to help her recreate the scene. He smirked at her boldness. teasing that she just wanted another opportunity to take advantage of him. She refuted firmly, claiming it was just for verification. With no choice left, Sang-yeon stood up and faced her. As they stood facing each other, Yi Fan noticed the considerable difference in their height. She pointed it out, questioning how she could have kissed him there without tiptoeing. Both of them looked down, then up again, only to realize how close their faces had become, barely an inch apart. Their eyes met, lingering a second too long, drifting unconsciously from each other's gaze to lips. The proximity made the air thick with tension, their heartbeats quickening under the weight of the moment. Abruptly, Yi Fan stepped back and turned away. Her face flushed red like a ripe tomato. She admitted he was right, and that she now believed him. Then, trying to cover her embarrassment, she told him to simply punch her next time it happened, and save himself the trouble. With that, she hurriedly walked away. Sang-yeon remained standing there, watching her retreating figure, his own face and ears tinged with red. He hadn't expected such a reaction, not from a lie he had added so casually, without imagining how the situation would unfold afterward. Inside her room, Yi Fan lay on the bed, tossing and turning, unable to fall asleep. Her mind kept replaying the earlier conversation. She couldn't deny the possibility she had always liked Sang-yeon's dimple for a long time. It was entirely believable that, in a moment of unconscious impulse, she might have kissed him there. But regardless of how real it felt, she resolved firmly that such a thing shouldn't happen again. Determined to prevent any further embarrassment, she dragged a chair and placed it right in front of the door, hoping it would stop her from walking out during the night. The following day, she took an early leave from work and went to visit her father. It was his death anniversary, a day that carried a quiet weight for her. Later that evening, when Sang-yeon returned home, he found her in the kitchen preparing dinner. She asked him if he'd already eaten. If not, he could join her. They sat down to eat, but the meal passed in silence. Neither spoke a word. The atmosphere was heavy, and Sang-yeon noticed something different about her demeanor, subtle, but undeniable. Still, he chose not to pry, respecting her space. That night, as the house grew quiet, Yi Fan once again walked out of her room. Sang-yeon was still awake and noticed her movement. Seeing her slow, deliberate steps, he instantly assumed she was sleepwalking again. Her posture was eerily calm, almost possessed, and she moved straight ahead without hesitation. When he lifted his hand to block her path, she didn't react, just quietly altered her direction and walked over to the sofa, where she sat down in silence. Curious and concerned, Sang-yeon sat beside her, watching closely. Minutes passed. Then, slowly, she turned her face toward him. He smiled faintly, assuming she was finally aware of his presence. But before he could process what was happening, she moved, suddenly climbing on top of him, one hand resting on his shoulder, the other pressing gently against his chest. Her eyes held a vacant, faraway look, yet her actions were deliberate. Sang-yeon froze, stunned by the unexpected closeness. Her hand reached up, softly caressing his cheek, specifically the spot he had joked about earlier. His heartbeat quickened as he watched her lips slowly inch closer. And this time, she truly kissed him, right at the corner of his lips. His eyes widened in disbelief, breath caught in his throat. His hand rose instinctively, wanting to hold her, but he hesitated. He couldn't do it, not unless she was fully aware, fully conscious. Instead, he simply closed his eyes and allowed himself to feel the warmth of the moment, letting the sensation settle deep within him. Even though the arms supporting him trembled slightly, after a moment, she slowly pulled away from him, her expression still distant and unreadable. Sang-yeon remained in place, his heart still racing from the unexpected intimacy. He looked at her intently, his voice laced with disbelief as he spoke, quietly pointing out what had just happened. Yet, she offered no response, her gaze unfocused, her steps already turning away from him. Without a word, she began to walk back toward her room. Sang-yeon quickly followed, questioning if she was really just going to walk away after kissing him like that. But she didn't react, didn't look back, didn't pause. Just continued moving forward as if nothing had happened. Instinctively, as she neared the door, Sang-yeon reached out and gently moved the chair that was placed in her way, still mindful that she might trip over it. She entered her room and quietly sat down on the edge of the bed, still silent, her posture still. Sang-yeon stood at the doorway, speaking more to himself than to her now, leaving behind words she wouldn't hear tonight. He reminded her, half in jest, half in truth, that he was never someone who gave anything away for free. So if she had kissed him, then Wen Yi Fan would have to remember she owed him now. And when she woke up, she'd have to make it up to him. With that, he turned and walked away.